I wondered, how small of a nation could you be and yet still manage to achieve military hegemony? 1 million troops in the field is no small feat, especially for smaller nations that are naturally limited by force limit, manpower and resources due to their size. With that said, another evident overpowered entity is of course Riga. Buffs like this, and this on a province are completely busted, and I'm assuming if you have been on YouTube you have already seen videos regarding them, talking about either playing as them or making them into a very powerful march. But one thing I haven't really seen covered is actually playing further with Riga. Like, okay, yes, by 1470 you can have a very strong Riga, but can you use that foundation to achieve something incredible, like a hyper-tall military hegemon? This is the question I posed myself, and that is what I've achieved this run. So here we are in EU4, and let's take a look at my 1778. I did get the Hegemon earlier, I just wanted to finish my last idea set run, where I played as Riga and did form Prussia. So to quickly show off, here's the achievements. Those are enabled. This was completed in Einman. I picked up the Terra Marina achievement as Riga to own and have a subject to own the Baltic region, and then purify the temple, which was actually a relatively fun war or experience for lack of a better word. I also managed to pick up finally the achievement of joining a coalition of more than 5 nations. I'm not sure how that achievement managed to evade me for so long, yet here we are. Anyway, so this is my Riga into Prussia run. I'm still restricted to 5 provinces. As you can see, the Cathedral of Riga, seat of the Rigan Archbishopry, and everything else here is met as conditions, and even the seat of the Rigan Archbishopric, which requires me to be a theocracy, is also met, because I am a Prussian militaristic divine state, combining my dedication to God and stabbing people, my 2 greatest passions. This is my army tab. It is somewhat inflated, as I have just popped the 10% discipline event from Inspirational Leader, but I'm running out with 10.5 morale, and 142.5% discipline, 6 from military technologies, and a whole bunch of other morale from other places, such as max army professionalism. My generals are pretty good, can't complain about them, and if we zoom out a bit more we can see what I've done with Europe here. Namely, I've set up a bit of a Prussian-Rigan Baltic trade empire is kind of the mood I've gone here for. I have 10 vassals, as you can see on this list here, and to be absolutely clear, all of these subjects are fully loyal. Let's actually take a quick tangent for me to very quickly complain about, well, a classic paradox moment. See, this is the age of revolutions. This is meant to be the time when the trodden and oppressed will break free. The Enlightenment is making everyone question authority in the world itself. So why did Paradox give me a tool to get all those people questioning me to politely shut the fuck up? Well, you see, loyal subjects decreasing liberty desire on the same continent by 25%, in combination with anti-revolutionary zeal decreasing liberty desire from subject development by 33%, basically gets them all to stop talking without many limitations. And in fairness, the other thing that certainly helped is, of course, my absolute flood of monarch points. I did have nothing better to do than dev my subjects, and dev my subjects I did. This build involved quite a bit of build-up for them. Not only have I built, obviously, all the forcement camps and conscription centers in my land, I've also built it in all of the AI's land. Every single province has a conscription center, and every single province that can have a manufactory, with a very quick exception, let's fix that right now, has a manufactory. See, this one's a coal mine, so it doesn't get one. My provinces themselves are, of course, these, well, 5 provinces here. Starting off with Riga, then I have Gotland, I have the 2 provinces of Königsberg and Danzig, and then I did take 1 extra one I needed to form Prussia, which I then gave back to the Teutons, and I took Sealand. All of these provinces have been dev to 60. They are Prussian and Protestant, which is my religion and culture of choice for this run, including Riga, because of course forming Prussia changes the culture of your capital to Prussian for free. All of my actual core provinces have stock exchanges, have town halls, have universities, have the dry docks and grand shipyards, if we take a look here, have both the training fields and conscription centers, have level 8 forts, have the cathedrals, and have the workshops built. Now some of you may be wondering, wait a minute, that's a lot more buildings than 10, and the answer is all of these are on -3 slots. I can't really demonstrate it right now, but yeah, basically the buildings are off screen here. The way this works is that buildings such as universities that give you a possible number of buildings +1 can be built where you're on 0 slots, including in this menu, meaning that you can overbuild it and have on -3 slots like I'm sitting right now, because I've just physically overbuilt. Let's hope Paradox doesn't fix this one, but it does mean that with setup you can have literally every single possible building built if you time it properly. Oh, and I also managed to get Perfume Capital as well as spawning global trade on Sealand. As you can see, this is not just a sound toll, this is also the global trade hub. Lübeck remains the richest trade node. In fact, I managed to get the Baltic Sea to be the richest trade node as just playing as normal Riga, but I managed to maintain it throughout the entire campaign, which is quite impressive considering that, well, colonization happened. In terms of my ideas, I did take Prussian ideas, and I opened Plutocratic using the initial Tier 1 government reform unique to Riga where you can sell indulgences. going into influence to stack vassal force limit, into offensive, into economic, into aristocratic, again with influence to stack force limit. Now aristocratic was achieved by very quickly flipping back into a normal monarchy, and then on the same exact day tick, after taking aristocratic, reforming back into my theocracy that we all know and love, and then going further into trade, quantity, and on the 8th slot, I didn't really have anything to pick, so just to mess with people, I went innovative. It felt really painful to do so after I had, already gotten a max innovativeness and already embraced every single institution present in the game. But hey, free policy. From policies and everything else involved, well, the policies are giving me 300% vassal force limit. This is how I'm able to maintain my force limit. All of my subjects are contributing to me a pretty impressive force limit count, after which I'm also multiplying it all by Grand Army for 15%, the full quality policy for 33%, and the agricultural economic policy for another 10%. But now let's address the elephant in the room, or rather the lack of elephant. See, much like you in the dating world, an issue with this build is going to be the complete lack of manpower. Basically, you just don't have a lot of provinces that give you buffs to manpower, so even though I have industrialization for 85, regimental cantons for 25, serfdom for 15, levy on mass for 33, and I have an extra 85% manpower recovery speed, which is again stupidly impressive, I'm not even breaking 2k manpower a month, which this late into the game is stupidly awful. I basically struggled with manpower this entire campaign, and I was very leisurely with my wars. Fact of the matter is, if you're realistically going for a subject force limit build, go for colonies. Crown colonies are able to provide you with manpower as well, and that is crucial for maintaining any kind of build like this, but this was achieved without colonies. Furthermore, another elephant in the room I want to address, and I think this is really not talked about if people are talking about playing Riga, is you really don't want to restrict yourself too long by trying to rely on these buffs. These buffs are very good for when you have your one province, or 2 or 3, and you've grabbed your first couple of vassals, and you want to go, alright, I want to be stronger now, I'm going to grab these buffs, I'm going to have these bonuses. This will make you, especially the Castle of Riga, basically a mid-tier power from an OPM, which is very strong. The issue, naturally, is that this does still restrict you to less than 6 provinces in Europe. You can cheese this by going and expanding into Asia and everything else in between. However, assuming conventional play, a very important thing that I think is not talked about with Riga, at a certain point it just doesn't make sense to restrict yourself by not expanding to maintain these buffs. Throw them under the bus and just expand. I've had a couple moments, sometimes quite extended within this campaign, where I had to hold provinces temporarily before I was able to release a subject, for example. So when I conquered Finland, I held this province to release Finland for quite a while, waiting for a different peace deal for a different war to finish before I could then release Finland, meaning I was over this cap. And let me tell you, I wasn't struggling as much as I thought I would be without these bonuses. For an income of around 60, I went down to around 50 at the time, which was of course a substantial hit, but nothing that was bankrupting me. And bear in mind, at that point I was also over force limit. Be aware that restricting yourself down to 5 provinces just to maintain these bonuses makes absolutely no sense. You're not playing as a dwarfs from Ambenar, where you have a mountain hold that's really overpowered. You're playing as a conventional country, and maintaining this dwarven hold of Riga is costing you in the potential of just holding other provinces. Don't get me wrong, 60 yearly tax income is good, but you can also get tax income from tax dev, and I'm not seeing anyone praise the tax meta excessively. Okay, maybe some people are for the meme, but you get the point. Don't get stuck in the loop where you must remain under 5 limits and think that your game ends when it, well, really doesn't. At some point, if you're playing Riga conventionally and not doing some kind of challenge like this, just be ready to accept it and give up these buffs for conventional expansion. With that said, another thing I want to talk about is Army Tradition has been a very requested modifier for me to stack, and let me tell you, yeah. By empowering the Junkers, getting the Soldier King of Prussia, nobility officers, and innovativeness, I've basically stacked to minus 4.5% decay, meaning they only decay 0.5, which is completely and utterly offset with a modifier such as the Prussian Tradition of 0.5, as well as all those fully maintained forts and tactics of the order that I was able to pick up from the Regan mission tree. Basically, I never struggle with Army Tradition. In fact, this is massive overkill. If Army Tradition wasn't capped at 100, I'll be sitting around 130% at the moment, given the decay rate. That would be my equilibrium. With that said, another thing that I really never struggle with this game is sailors. I guess you just never really use them as much as you do, but I still even went over force limit. I have quite an impressive navy. This was mostly when I was having to fight the French and everyone else involved in the process. The French had a really good game, actually, and it's probably my biggest rivals. I ended up having to fight them a couple times when I was establishing these vassals. They're probably one of the more entertaining wars I've had, especially since I couldn't just roll over them. I had to be very cautious about my manpower and had to actually pick good fights, which is very rare to say against the AI, which is why you also see that my army right now, despite the generals being a bit spotty, is actually built quite properly. If you take a look at my military tab in terms of the construction for new units, you see that I have on here both a front row and cannon back row stacks and reinforcement stacks built, because this is basically a budget take-it-home MP build. Of course, all of these troops are fully drilled, but the 45k stacks represent, split into half, front row and back row cannon stacks, with the 40k stacks being used for reinforcements for conventional fighting. Combined with Prussia, this meant that I was able to take stupidly good fights against everyone involved, and it would have given me really, really pretty screenshots to show, hey, I killed 2 million Frenchmen with 100k casualties. The issue, of course, is I had vassals, and those vassals conveniently took another 2 million casualties for me, which is a bit awkward. Although I have to say, by building force camps in all of them and giving them manpower buildings, the vassals are fielding very, very impressive armies on their own, meaning our combined strength is now pretty ridiculous. The estates are, of course, kept very much in check at this point, and the economy has hit economic hegemon levels as well because, well, trade is overpowered. And this is what I mean by trade is overpowered, you should do it as every country. Let's be clear here, nations such as Prussia are not exactly known for their trade prowess, but even with that said, just by having 5 provinces and actually bothering to micromanage my trade, steering in places I should be steering, upgrading centers of trade inside my subjects, so on and so forth, I'm able to be making 874 ducats a month from trade, while having literally 5 provinces to my name. Trade is a win button, and you should be playing around with it, unless you're not doing so for a specific challenge. Regarding my vassals, I went for a weird self-restriction on them. I was trying to make sure that they were sitting around 5 states, the exception being the Teutons, because I took 2 provinces from them and felt bad and hence gave them an extra state. So Livonia, as you can see here, has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 states. The Teutons will have 6. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 states. Now, I wish that Volgos formed Pomerania, but thankfully that would have been a very ugly with color swap with Silesia. But nonetheless, they also have the same 5 states. The 2 states of Pomerania, 1, 2, then Neumark for 3, Mittermark for 4, and finally Mecklenburg for 5. Hamburg has been expanded into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 states into here. And finally Ansbach, which I did it for the missions and nice purple color, also has access to 5 states here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we go. All of this land is, of course, Protestant, in this beautiful Protestant empire. And at one point, I even released Sapmi, but I never, well, basically brought them back in line. They certainly spend their time developing this province for whatever reason. Hey, it's a metropolis, that's for sure. This entire state is a city of the world's desire, really. And they're also relatively rare to see on the map, so that's neat. Furthermore, these borders of Scandinavia are certainly enough to make everyone in Scandinavia not happy, maybe apart from the Norwegians, so that's good to see. And again, just to confirm, Norway has 5 states. 1, 2, 3, 4, and finally 5. Sweden too, I did have to full annex and release back from their void, but as you can see, also have access to 5 states. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now initially I wanted this to be a Denmark, but Denmark refused to be annexed. They did get annexed now, but they held territories down here, which was very annoying and did not help this entire situation. So Sweden gets to replace them. And to be clear as well, all of my land is Prussian. Sealand being one of the 2 that I actually had to culture convert compared to Gotland. With that said, let's take a look at the timeline now. We're going to play it over relatively slowly. The opening plays are going to be very hard to see on this map mode here. Nothing too much, I just sit around for the lack of a better part, getting ready for a 49 Seas of Crownland, and then I go into both Livonia and the Teutonic Order. I managed to snag a Poland alliance, and I backstab them there and not give them any land, despite promising them land, so they kind of end up hating me for the rest of the game after that. That's okay though, I end up killing them. So as you can see, really not much happens because changes on the map are not really visible. To speed up a bit, by 1475 I've seized the first province from the Teutons, just setting up to make sure they stay loyal and get ready for the formation of Prussia. For me, I will need 3 provinces from them. As you can see, I'm starting to expand the Livonian Order, and this is a bit of a weird bug here because I have released Novgorod at this point. I never do hold this in the same way that the screen at the moment indicates, but there you go, there's Novgorod, what's popping out. There's Finland, all the subjects are being set up. I mean, again, I took a very leisurely pace with this campaign. I was really in no rush at any point. I did temporarily give the Livonian Order Sealand, because at this point I was trying to hold on to Berlin just to get the missions done, and as you can see, here's the Livonian Order forming, well, Livonia. Not really sure how that works, but we'll find out nonetheless. And slowly but surely, as you can see, I do my thing here. Austria is the one I end up coalitioning for the achievement, and you can slowly but surely see my subjects emerge. There's the Teutons being fed. There's Sweden re-popping back into existence. There's Silesia popping out again. Then me remembering Bornholm. And there we go, Silesia's expansion. Hamburg and Ansbach also popping back into existence. Now, when I fight France, I make them give up these 2 provinces, and I create a client state here that I give free, just so the Netherlands can form. I thought that'd be cool. Unfortunately, France does put a stop to that, so that's a bit unfortunate. And there it is in 1778, and that is the campaign. Very leisurely taken, but I think an enjoyable one nonetheless. If you're trying to do a vassal playthrough yourself, I'd actually not really recommend Riga. I just recommend going for a colonial game and going for Andalusia. So a Muslim Spain is already a relatively unique campaign if you haven't played it, but it comes with extra bonuses as Andalusia has access to a 100% vassal force limit, which you can combine with this build to get even more troops from your vassals. In fact, if you do that and then you also play a horde, so that you're able to grab horde, plutocratic and aristocratic, you're able to stack an extra 100% from the horde influence policy, meaning that once you hit over 500% vassal force limit contribution, you hit a hilarious position where a force limit camp inside your vassals actually gives you more force limit, meaning that genuinely having land inside vassals contributes more to your force limit than not having land inside your vassals. Another thing that I want to address is why didn't I make any of my vassals marches? None of the marches would have been small enough for me to actually give them march bonuses. I'm outdeveloped by basically every single one of these vassals over here. As you can see, they're all between like 800 and 400 development without question, and I'm sitting at 315. I'm actually the smallest of these vassals, so none of them could have had the march buffs. And to top it all off, insult to injury, if I make them a march, they stop paying me money. So by making them a march, I don't get any bonuses, and they just stop giving me tax income. And this stuff actually adds up to a non-trivial amount. It's more than the tax and production I'm making after all. And I have basically no modifiers to vassal tax efficiency. I know it's ironic making a build out of vassal tax, but there's really no reason to turn down 171 ducats a month. Otherwise, I also managed to sit at 100% absolutism. No issues there, well, that's just Prussia for you. And to be clear, I also did not bother with court and country this run, so I could have had more if I bothered, but I didn't. This is actually why I golden aged in 1615, and then realized I don't need court and country to be successful. The main thing I had, which is why I was calculating I would need court and country, is I had given out all of the, well, land rights privileges until I realized, even though I have minus 50% GovCap from militaristic divine state, I am good on GovCap. One of the nice advantages of only having 5 provinces after all, even if they're dev to 60 with max expanded infrastructure everywhere. I mean, look at that, Riga has expanded infrastructure literally 5 times. You need 90 development for the next one. Mission-wise, I was able to do a decent chunk of them. Unfortunately, apart from show of strength, I could have technically held 15 provinces in northern Germany temporarily, but I didn't bother, and then the rest I could have done by just having non-tributary subjects own this land. Which is a bit of a shame, but it is what it is. I did manage to achieve the Conquer Poland and a bunch of the other missions on the side, especially the Franconian and Ansbach succession missions. And I did renovate Berlin, as I did temporarily hold Berlin and pop those missions, allowing me to get an army with state reform, meaning that this run also has, when combined with sustained discipline, giving you minus 33% regiment drill loss, a total of minus 108% regiment drill loss achieved just by accident. 50% army professionalism, an army with the state, and sustained discipline, it does do that for you. Meaning that, as Prussia, I would genuinely, unironically recommend a sustained discipline government reform instead of their unique general war commissariat. Yes, you lose out on some yearly army tradition, which frankly I don't think you need. Yes, you lose out on some military technology cost, and you lose out on some militarization of state, but frankly it's redundant, in my opinion. However, if you're trying to maintain constant militarization, I guess it can be good, although my tip for that is, it's not that expensive to boost it. Yes, it decays, but it's just a monarch points sink you can just throw your monarch points into, especially if you're not at peace, just having high army tradition, actually holding on to Berlin so you can build a monument, and other sources of militarization mean that you can just maintain it, frankly, surprisingly well. But there we go. France has managed to grab economic hegemon, but I was able to maintain military hegemon the whole time, despite all the manpower issues that are involved with that. Although at this point, France has also hit 1 million manpower, so realistically this would be a time where I'd have to declare war on them, and probably go crush the revolution, have another fun war with that, but I can't really be bothered, so I can leave it as an exercise to the reader. And with that, I will be posting a save game for those interested to my channel members. Feel free to join down below to get access to the save, as well as some other cool perks in the process. Bear in mind, you will not be able to earn achievements, as the Iron Man validity of the save is tied to my account, so it's not like you'll be able to choose achievements by just opening the save in your account, but if you want to play around with this nation, take a look in the save and anything else you are up to, you're welcome to do that. But that is all I have time for today. Thank you very much for watching, with a special thank you to all my YouTube members, especially Ark, Solar, Solemon, and W Haste.